Good afternoon, everyone. Today it is right at noon, so we're gonna kick things off. Maybe I'll give it 30 seconds to let some participants join in, and then we'll kick things off. Okay, I feel like it's been close enough to 30 seconds, so I'm gonna get going. Welcome everyone to the inaugural NoVaTransit Talks webinar, Improving the Bus Rider Experience. We're going to hear from experts around the region on innovative work they've done and are still doing to improve the Northern Virginia bus rider experience. I'm Sophie Spiliotopoulos. I'm a data visualization program manager at NVTC, and I will be your host and moderator today. We're going to kick things off with the NVTC's chair, Sarah Bagley. We'll then hear from all three presenters, and then we will lead a discussion. And then finally, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. Please add the questions to the Q&A chat, and we will then ask them depending on time at the end. So I'm now excited to introduce NVTC's chair and City of Alexandria's Vice Mayor, Sarah Bagley, to kick us off with a few words. Sarah Bagley was appointed to NVTC in January of 2022 and currently serves as its chair. She is also the chair of the NVTC Executive Committee and a member of the NVTC Program Advisory Committee. She's a principal member of the VRE Operations Board and served as its chair last year in 2025. An avid bike rider and public transit customer, Ms. Bagley advocates for transit-related programs, safer streets for all, and environmentally sustainable solutions for residents, workers, business owners, and visitors to Virginia. Thank you, Ms. Bagley, for all of that. I'll hand it over to you to get started.
Thank you so much, Sophie, and welcome everybody who shares my interest and love for bus stop and bus ridership conversations. As mentioned, I'm Sarah Bagley, chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, and on behalf of all the cities and counties that NVTC represents, along with the appointees from the Virginia Senate and House and Governor Abigail Spanberger's administration, I want to welcome you all to this webinar. Today, we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to me, which is buses. In particular, how can we make riding the bus an even better experience in Northern Virginia? In March of this year, 3.2 million people rode the bus in our region. And despite that, you continue to hear people say nobody rides the bus, but those numbers are really important. 3.2 million people in March. And nearly 2/3 of those folks were on our local bus routes, Dash in Alexandria, ART in Arlington, Q in the city of Fairfax, Fairfax Connector, and the Loudoun County Transit and OmniRide. And those numbers also have been growing. Bus ridership was incredibly resilient after the pandemic and bounced back even more quickly than other methods. Metro Bus and Metro Rail also continue to have a robust public transit network that takes people to jobs, schools, stores, sports, and other entertainment venues and opportunities. Where the bus stop is also matters. Over 61% of Northern Virginia residents live within a quarter mile of a bus stop, but that number goes up to 78% of households that don't own a car. When you match where people want to go with effective bus service, people ride the bus. And we know that's true, especially here in Alexandria with our Dash routes that serve the Pentagon. NVTC's Commuter Choice Program has funded additional Dash service to keep up with that incredible demand. We're also looking forward to a new express metro bus route on Route 7, supported by Commuter Choice. The corridor is already home to one of the busiest bus routes in Northern Virginia, the F20 and the F2X, coming online later this year, and it will provide more frequency and a faster ride with fewer stops. Bus ridership is also about affordability. With the average price of a car in America reaching $50,000 and gas prices well above the 8-year average, consumers are looking for ways to spend less. And the bus is a great way to eliminate or at least reduce the cost of owning and operating a personal vehicle. And you don't have to pay to park a bus, which certainly saves time as well when you get to your destination. With the region's population projected to continue growing in the coming decades, we need to constantly think about how to keep people moving. Buses are a great way to move many more people on the roads we already have. Making riding the bus more appealing for existing and future riders benefits everyone by lessening the impact of population growth by enabling less car usage. Today's webinar dives into improving bus stops in Alexandria, improving microtransit in Loudoun County, and redesigning the bus network in the city of Fairfax. These methods are just some of the ways our local governments and transit agencies are working towards improving the bus rider experience. I'm looking forward to hearing the insights from our panelists and the expertise they have to share about that experience. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chair Bagley. It's now time to hear from our first speaker, Silas Sullivan. Silas serves as the Complete Streets Coordinator for the City of Alexandria, where he supports programs such as Safe Routes to School, Vision Zero, and implementing the council-approved Alexandria Mobility Plan. He established the city's bus stop program and manages capital improvements to roughly 700 bus stops. Over the past 3 years, his work has brought ADA enhancements and amenities like seating, shelters, and lighting to more than 150 locations, helping make transit more accessible and comfortable for all Alexandrians. Take it away, Silas.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Sophie, and appreciate the opening remarks by Vice Chair Bagley. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Silas Sullivan. I'll be giving you a presentation today on the City of Alexandria's bus stop program. Next slide, please. Again, Complete Streets Coordinator in the city. Next slide, please. I'd like to start off by just kind of establishing a baseline. Bus stops are for everyone. Transit stops are established so that folks of all abilities can get where they needed to go in a safe, efficient, and comfortable manner. You know, people say that mobility is freedom. We believe that is true, and you should have a comfortable and easy way to do it. Next slide, please. So the goals and objectives of the bus stop program really derive from the city's leading transportation document, which is the Alexandria Mobility Plan. Within the Alexandria Mobility Plan, the 3 key goals that our work serves to accomplish is improving and ensuring access for folks of all abilities, improving the rider experience from trip planning all the way to getting to the stop, to expanding amenities, making sure that shelters, seating, lighting are in the proper locations to enhance the experience for our riders. Next slide, please. So the City of Alexandria, it is small yet dense. We have just under 700 bus stops within 15 square miles. We're transit rich. We have 3 transit operators, Dash, Metrobus, and Fairfax Connector within the city that service over 25 bus routes. And they also provide service to the city's 5 metro rail stations. Next slide, please. So over the past year, we've been able to do a lot. I'd like to start out by just saying we kind of started to baseline by saying, hey, where are we now? So what we did was we audited all of our bus stops to establish a clear, concise repository of information regarding amenities at bus stops, establishing what services were coming on, and also the headways of these bus stops. We use this information to directly power our new bus stop dashboard. So this is a tool that lives on our bus stop program webpage on the city. It's really an improved communications tool, and it allows us to interface more easily with our residents. So this bus stop dashboard displays everything from amenities at your stop, an interactive map. It tracks improvement progress, and allows a little more transparency between planning staff and the rider. We also, in terms of many enhancements over the last year, were able to install over 15 new bus shelters, 40 new ADA boarding pads, 20 new solar lights, and over 20 benches. Finally, we're very proud of the 2 corridor rebalancing efforts that we've had over the past year as well. Again, just to kind of show where we were and how far we've come, these are just some of the figures a few years ago of some of the key kind of amenities and checkpoints of our bus stops. I'd like to hone in on the ADA compliance one there. So in 2023, citywide, we had about 65% of our bus stops were ADA compliant. Next slide, please. In just the last 3 years, we've been able to increase that number from 65% to 80%, and we're very proud of this. How did we do this? a lot of it came from attacking the low-hanging fruit. So you'll probably hear throughout this presentation between, how to best target improvements. What we've seen at the city, what works is really using the easiest ways forward. ADA boarding pads, targeted parking removal, corridor rebalancing, things like that to really improve access first and foremost for our riders of all abilities before targeting some of the costlier improvements as well. But I also would like to just shout out the real-time screens aspect in the bottom right. Thanks to Community Choice and NVTC for the support they gave to Dash there to improve those figures. Next slide, please. This is just briefly some of the decision methodology that influences our prioritization within the city of Alexandria. Some of our key criteria include ridership, ease of construction, headways, and also factors like costs, equity, resident requests, coordinating with private developers, and also with other city projects. Next slide, please. These challenges and opportunities will sound probably pretty uniform to all the folks on this call. We all have a battle with funding. We have been very fortunate within the city over the last few years to get funding from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, specifically the TRIP grant. The TRIP grant has been resourceful and has powered a lot of the amenity enhancements that we've been able to do over the last year. Staffing is always a challenge, whether that's having the appropriate amount of internal staffing to carry the work forward, or making sure you have the vendors online and ready to hit the ground running to continue enhancing transit stops for your residents. And some of the challenges and opportunities really come through community priorities. Like I mentioned previously, we are tasked with advancing the strategies and goals within the Alexandria Mobility Plan, but kind of where the opportunities come for further involvement is when you are rebalancing a corridor or planning amenity improvements. Listening to has the community requested improvements at this location before, getting out there, meeting with folks, and also kind of listening to them and saying, does this bus stop make sense for you, or should it move, from near side to far side, things like that. And finally, equity, ensuring that, as we allocate resources, we do it across the whole city and not just in one particular neighborhood. Next slide, please. Now, I'll just give you some examples of some of the bus stop enhancements we've done over the past year. Again, like I said, some of the low-hanging fruit that's allowed us to really improve our accessibility for folks is ADA boarding pads. It can be as simple as just some concrete in a 5x8 boarding area, whether that's between the sidewalk and the curb or beyond the sidewalk where you have the right-of-way. Establishing those zones. Next slide, please. Seating, making sure that the stop is comfortable and folks have a place to sit. There should be benches, lean rails, maybe some concrete as well. Next slide, please. Solar lighting. We were actually able to find a model that allows us to put a solar lighting unit on the top of a U-channel pole. So we kind of paired this with some U-channel replacements and new solar lights. And we did a blitz this past winter. We installed over 20 of these to improve visibility and safety at some bus stops. And we are planning more as well. Next slide, please. And finally, bus shelters. This could include replacing legacy bus shelters. So at the left, there was a former shelter from WMATA that had been there for a few decades. We finally replaced that this spring. And this could also include, new shelters on the right at a new location. Just continuing the importance of providing protection from the elements for riders while they're at transit stops. Next slide, please. So I showed you a lot of examples of, construction, physical elements, but not everything involves the dirt and the hard hats. Next slide. A big thing for the city was data management. A lot of our progress and improvements came through streamlining our information sharing. So like I mentioned previously, the audit we did of all of our bus stops. Well, we took that information and we put it into a centralized inventory that pertinent staff within the city have. And this directly powers our bus stop program dashboard. So there's a screen grab on the right there that kind of just displays it. But really what this tool does is it gives an interactive interface for folks on the public side and allows us to display to our residents and our riders, what amenities their bus stop has, what tools they can use, and also how we're doing in terms of citywide and as improvements come via city improvements or private development. All right. Some of our relevant projects I'd like to talk about, next slide please, include the Old Town Circular Stop Rebalancing effort. This is an effort that we're currently undertaking right now and is supposed to come online next month, actually. So currently, just for some background, there are 26 bus stops on one of the highest ridership corridors within the city of Alexandria. This is where dash lines 30, 31, 34, partially, and also the King Street Trolley come along in Old Town. So this project is from City Hall, Market Square to the Braddock Road Metro Station. Currently, there are 26 bus stops on this corridor. After our rebalancing effort, so we're removing 10 and adding 5 new ones. There will be 21 along this corridor. Next slide, please. And some of the key benefits of this that we're excited to see are better bus stop pairs, improved stop spacing, enhanced amenities, and what I'm most proud of is the accessibility aspect. Currently, there are only 38% of the bus stops along this corridor are ADA accessible. Upon implementation next month, we'll have 100% accessibility along this corridor. Next slide, please. This is another project we're excited to talk about. Over the last year, we've kind of worked to streamline. So on the picture on the left, this is in the former parking garage at the former Landmark Mall site. Dash and WMATA had their operations centered in the parking garage with 2 bus shelters and 2 bus bays where several routes converged. Well, part of the opportunity with the redevelopment that came was they established a transit street outside. So we were very fortunate enough to get TRIP grant from DRPT to deploy 12 new bus shelters across 6 bus bays on this transit street. We did that this past April, and as you can see, the major difference there. Next slide, please. So finally, just to kind of wrap up everything, I'd just like to point out for bus stop improvements, the work is never finished, and really, you're in for the long haul. It is not a sprint. What the city has done that's been so successful is really hitting the low-hanging fruit first. Put some ADA pads out there, do some of the low-cost improvements, and do a lot of them. Because over time, you'll have more opportunities to get funding for some of the larger time-consuming tasks. And, finally, we can't do this alone. We work and need the help of our regional, federal, state partners, especially for the grant assistance in order to keep these improvements coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Silas. Sorry, I was slow on the unmute, but thank you, Silas. I do want to give Wendy a opportunity to talk about some of this work City of Fairfax has done on bus stops. So Wendy, I'm going to hand it over to you to briefly tell us about that.
Sure, thank you. You'll be hearing more about Q later in the webinar, but I wanted to just chime in real quickly to share some of the bus stop improvements that Q has also undertaken. Next slide, please. We had the benefit of receiving a commuter choice grant for almost $1 million. And with that, we've had the opportunity to upgrade a number of our bus stops. Now, just for comparison purposes, we have 197 stops and about 45 of those are with shelters in the city of Fairfax. So much lower number of shelters and stops than in the city of Alexandria. But we've been able to make some nice improvements. We've installed semi seats, and that's the photo on the left. We've put in some real-time signs, and you can see that on the middle of the shelter and the photo in the center there. It's hard to see, but it's a real-time sign that gives some some live information about the bus stop location. And then also 23 lights. And next slide, please. And one other thing we've been able to do is put at all of our stops a sign that says, "Where is my bus?" And that gives a direct connection to the live bus tracker. So this was just some follow-up information to show some of the exciting things that the city of Fairfax has been doing at our bus stops as well. You'll hear more from me later. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, I just wanted to give you all the opportunity to talk about bus stops because obviously Dash is not the only one doing things with bus stops or bus. I am now going to introduce Gladys Hurwitz. She is a transportation planning and program management professional with over 13 years of experience in state and local government. In her current role at Loudoun County Transit and Commuter Services, she oversees transportation program administration and end-to-end project planning and delivery. Throughout her career, Gladys has worked across Baltimore City Department of Transportation, the Maryland Department of Transportation, and Northern Virginia. building lasting partnerships and delivering complex multi-stakeholder projects that create real community impact. Before I actually hand it over to Gladys, I do want to remind the audience that you are welcome to put questions in the Q&A box whenever you want and we will get to them at the end. The Q&A should just be at the bottom of your screen when you kind of hover over the bottom. If it's not, there might be a little more icon. You can click that and see it there. And with that PSA, I will now hand it over to Gladys.
Thanks for that introduction, Sophie. Really appreciate that. So as Sophie mentioned, for the session today, I'm going to share some information regarding our transit on-demand pilot here in Leesburg. Next slide. However, before we get started, I'm just going to give everyone a quick overview regarding some of the transportation transit options that we have in the county. We have commuter bus, which connects starting from the park and ride lots into parts of DC, Crystal City, Virginia, Pentagon, Roslyn during a lot of the rush hour. We have local service with 30 routes and over 300 stops running from Purcellville through Leesburg and into Eastern Loudoun, some connecting directly to our Silver Line. And we also have paratransit, which is our curb-to-curb accessible service that runs the same days and hours as our fixed routes. As you know, I'll go into a little bit more about on-demand, but beyond our transit services, we also have programs that I think sometimes gets overlooked a lot, including our commuter and employer services program, which helps people figure out the best way to get around, whether that's for a daily commute or generally getting from point A to point B. And we also have our mobility assistance and travel training program, which is something we're really proud of. It's free and it's designed to give people, especially those who need a little extra support, the confidence to use public transportation on their own. That independence piece really matters to us. And of course, none of this happens in isolation. We're constantly working with our regional partners to keep Loudoun connected to the broader picture. Next slide, please. So in 2025, we completed a full on-demand microtransit feasibility study for Loudoun. And what that study did was really dig into where on-demand could actually work, right? So it looked into the market analysis, the qualitative data, quantitative data, all of it. And what came out of that pretty clearly was that Leesburg had the strongest potential for a pilot. So that's where we started. We launched a pilot on July 7th of 2025. The service area covers about 5.9 square miles. And we intentionally focused it around major commercial areas, employment centers, and neighborhoods where places, different places where we felt the demand was really there. Right now, the service is running 5 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And on July 1st, we're adding weekend service, which is a really big step for us. Booking a trip is flexible. Riders can use the app online or just call in. We wanted to make sure there was a barrier to access. There wasn't a barrier to access based on how comfortable someone is with technology, for example. The service is free, and that matters a lot when you're trying to get to the people who are trying to get something new, try something new. And for vehicles, we're actually running Chrysler Pacificas, which are vans. And we also have what we call them game changer vehicles. It's actually our accessible vehicle, and it could seat up to 8 passengers. So having that access option actually wasn't an afterthought for us. It was actually part of the plan from the start. A little bit more about the app. One thing I want to highlight here, because I think it's pretty significant, is that we do have one app that handles both paratransit and on-demand booking. So that's not something every system has, and it matters a lot for our riders. So within the app, you can book the ride, track it in real time. So you're not just waiting and wondering, right? Which is great. You can see all of your upcoming trips in one place and make changes or cancel if your plans shift. And there's also a feedback feature built right in, which honestly ties back to what I was saying earlier about hearing from riders. That's not accidental. We wanted to make sure it was easy and possible for someone to tell us something, for example, if something's not working or what is working, right? Both positive and negative feedback, which is very, very limited, thankfully. The goal with the app was really to keep it simple and put everything a rider needs in one place, whether they book paratransit or on-demand. So within the service area, we have over 150 virtual stops. Some of those are existing bus stops, but a lot of them are locations we place strategically so that nobody has to walk more than a quarter mile to get picked up or reach your destination. That was intentional. For riders who need it, accessible trips are curb to curb. And what's been really interesting is looking at the heat map data and seeing where people are actually going. Grocery stores, medical offices, places of work. People are using this to get to the places that really matter in their daily lives. That tells us that the stop placement is working and that this service is filling a real need in the community, which is what we want to see. Next slide, please. So the success of this pilot really came down to a few things: getting riders to actually try it, making sure people knew it existed, and staying connected to the community throughout, right? So from the start, we set clear service goals so we'd have something real to measure against. Things like how many passengers are moving per vehicle, wait times, walk distance, how many riders are actually rating the experience. And the numbers are honestly encouraging. Since the launch through May of this year, we've completed over 21,000 rides. We're hitting 3 passengers per vehicle hour. Average wait times is under 20 minutes. Nobody's walking more than a quarter mile. And the average ride rating has been phenomenal. 4.8 out of 5 is where we are right now. The last one, I think, really says a lot. Riders are telling us that they're having a good experience, and that's an important data point. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to share that through March, we're seeing really great growth in terms of those shared rides, 3 or more riders per trip. April and May, we're watching very closely. We're not drawing any conclusions yet, but we're paying close attention, and that's really just part of the whole process. Next slide, please. So we have a lot coming up. In July, we're adding weekend service in Leesburg, and we're committing to running that pilot for another year because we're still learning and we want to see where it goes. We're also launching a brand new on-demand service in Sterling on July 1st. Sterling was actually the second location flagged in our feasibility study as an opportunity, a great opportunity to do another pilot. So it wasn't a surprise for us. It's always been part of the plan. And across both zones, the mission stays the same: connecting people to jobs, community centers, senior centers, Silver Line access, the places people actually need to go. That's what drives all of this. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Gladys. Congratulations on that 4.8. That's awesome. So I'm now going to move things along and introduce our final presenter, Wendy Sandford. This is her, official introduction, even though we just heard from her. Wendy has served as the transportation director for the city of Fairfax since 2014. She is responsible for the city's transportation planning, as well as project development, including funding acquisition, project planning, and construction. In addition, her division manages the city's Q bus system. Prior to joining City of Fairfax, Wendy served as transportation program manager for the City of Falls Church. Take it away, Wendy.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So the next and final presentation is about the City of Fairfax Q and our plans to change our routes for the first time since 1980. Next slide. So just by way of a little bit of background on the City of Fairfax and our Q system, as I just mentioned, the system was established in 1980, and we really have not changed our routes significantly since then. We operate 4 loop routes. We operate 7 days a week, and we have service Monday through 7 days a week, but on Saturdays and Sundays, our frequency is every hour instead of during the week, which is about 30 minutes, and I'll speak to that more in a minute. We have a fleet of 12 buses and up to 8 in service during our peak times. And our system is owned and directly operated by the City of Fairfax. Our operators are City of Fairfax employees. We do not contract out our bus service. And just for a little more context about the city, we're a city of 22,000 people. And I always refer to the City of Fairfax as the donut hole within Fairfax County. So we're surrounded on all sides by the county, but we are an independent jurisdiction And we operate our own bus system that operates mostly within the city of Fairfax. It runs outside the city into the county to get to the Metro Rail station and also to get to George Mason University. All of our routes do go to both Mason and to Metro. Next slide, please. I have a quiz, and this is just to make sure everyone's paying attention. And so please use the Q&A feature to enter your response, but I have a quiz. We have rebranded Q, but that was only a couple of years ago. And so for the first 45 years of Q's existence, what did the letters Q stand for? So you could enter your thoughts into the chat. I'd appreciate it. Just trying to see how much Q history everyone knows. Anyone want to take a stab? Well, there is a wrong answer, but don't be shy. There you go. Thank you, Justin. All right, so Justin said city, university, and everywhere else. That is a great guess. And I'm going to go ahead and say the original CUE. Oh, city. Yes, Benjamin Owen. I think that though, that's really not very fair, but we'll go ahead and give you kudos for that is correct. It is the city university energy saver. However, next slide, please. We have now rebranded. And as you can see, we're the same Q, just cuter. And now what does Q stand for? Any thoughts? Geneva. I also think that that you also have an unfair advantage, but you are correct. It is city, period, university, period, everyone. And so we're just trying to make the Q name. We wanted to keep it. It was recognized, everyone, we had brand recognition. So we wanted to keep the Q name when we rebranded and just make it a little more meaningful what the Q stood for. Next slide, please. Okay, so we started our TDP in a couple years ago. The last time we had done this was in 2017. And every time we had done a TDP before, we ended up with really no significant changes. And there's a reason for that. It's difficult. The city has an interesting shape, and it's hard to hit everywhere. But with this TDP, we wanted to update our goals and objectives, understand any recent changes in our travel patterns and demographics, and coordinate, this is a really important one, with recent changes to regional transit systems. There are a number of new bus routes that are coming through the city. So we wanted to take the opportunity and say, all right, where are those bus systems going? And do we need to replicate that? What's more important, to have Q service or to have any transit service? That was one of the big questions that we were asking ourselves. Next slide, please. So looking at our ridership hotspots, I'm going to make this real easy. You can see the big red spots. That is Mason up to the north and Metro up to the north and Mason down to the south. Our other high ridership spots are at our mixed use areas, at our activity centers, but this is not surprising where we're seeing our high ridership. But what you can see is that we're spread all around the city. And this comes to play when we're looking at how do we prioritize where to have Q go. You can see that there are it's spread out all over the place where our ridership is going now. Next slide, please. Another thing to take in mind here is that our revenue hours have remained flat. Again, as I've mentioned, we have not changed our service since 1980. So you can see we've had the same number of revenue hours, but our costs have increased significantly. Next slide. So when we were looking at how can we modify our routes, one of the things we really needed to do was limit the operational cost increases. So when I get to one of the opportunities, it was how to keep the service without inflating our operating costs too much. But in terms of some of the key challenges, our headways are irregular. So our schedule, our printed schedule says that the bus comes approximately every 30, 33 minutes. In reality, it's more like 40 to 45, especially during our peak hours. And our on-time performance drops significantly during those weekday afternoon peak times. And when we're off peak, we are looking at 60-minute headways. Next slide, please. So when we were thinking about what are our priorities, what are our opportunities, we wanted to upgrade frequency, relax speeds, and make sure that whatever we print as our schedule that we can actually meet. We wanted to simplify routes, prioritize one-seat rides, and really this was very important for us, was to remain cost neutral while limiting loss of service. And that's sort of like cake and eat it too. It's a difficult thing. And finally, and I mentioned this already, we want to complement the existing service that's in the city. There's new Metro bus routes. We've always had the GMU shuttles, and that's really just for Mason students, faculty, and staff, and Fairfax Connector. But there's a lot of transit that's available. And so we're looking at where does the transit exist in the city? And again, is it important for people to have Q service or any transit service? Next slide, please. But one of the things to mention about Q service is that it is zero fare, while some of the other services are not. This has actually been a huge success story for the city of Fairfax Q system. Our ridership is 53% higher than it was in FY19 when we started with the zero fare. This has been really very successful for us. Our buses are full all the time. Next slide, please. So what's behind our ridership increase? Well, we think really simply that it's due to our fare-free policy. We also think there's more students living in the city who don't own cars. So they're using the Q to get all around the city. They're not just going to school, to campus and back. They're using the bus to get everywhere around the city. Also, we have better regional connectivity to other services. You can easily connect to those other transit services that I mentioned. And we also have reliable, friendly service. And I don't want to underemphasize that point. We get compliments all the time about our wonderful drivers, our operators. People get on the bus, they are greeted with a friendly face. We get compliments all the time about how nice it is to get on the bus, be greeted by the same driver every single day. And that's one of the things we take pride in. People who ride Q, love Q. Once we get people onto Q, they're hooked. So we're really proud of that. And Q is definitely a gem in our community. Next slide, please. So as part of our TDP update, we did a survey and we asked, what do you think Q should focus on the most in our study? And you'll see that the top two answers kind of contradict each other. First, we want more, well, not contradict each other. They're just very hard to do in a budget neutral environment. More frequent service and add service to areas not served by Q. Those were the two highest priorities that we heard from. So we thought, well, what are we going to do here? Are we going to expand service? But already our bus hits about 80% of our city can walk to a bus, is within a quarter mile of a bus stop. So we really thought frequency was the thing to focus on. Next slide, please. So again, this is a map of our existing service, and you can see what I'm talking about when I say that 80% of the city is within a quarter mile of a bus stop. You can see that some route is pretty accessible to most people living in the city. And as I mentioned, all of our trips serve Mason and the Metro. However, you can also see in looking at that our routes are long. You get on the bus, and if you get on going the wrong way, you might have to sit going around that whole loop. Next slide. As I mentioned, we wanted to leverage other service in the city. And so what this is showing is the service that is in the city between Metrobus, Fairfax Connector, and then our existing Q. And a lot of this Metrobus service is new to us recently. So this is a benefit that we now have the advantage of taking advantage of. Next slide, please. So after much ado and much discussion, these are the proposed Q routes. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that the general outline of where we are serving looks very similar to what we're serving today. The difference is that instead of loops, what is proposed is 3 bidirectional streamlined routes. So we have that orange route on the left, a Q West. We have a Q Central, which goes up Blenheim Boulevard, and then a Q East, which is shown in that sort of pinkish purple color. So what we're trying to do is keep the connections to both the Vienna Metro Rail Station and to Mason, but shorten the routes and improve frequencies. What we're looking at is having in the afternoon, which is when we really tend to get behind schedule, adding a third bus to that west route so that we'll have 20-minute frequencies on the west route and actual 30-minute frequencies on the other routes. And that's a really important point to make, is that we're talking about actual, not just printed, which is what we have now. We're really trying to provide more frequent service, and particularly in some of our areas at the very high ridership, provide 20-minute service. We're also going to be looking at consolidating some of our bus stops so that we can maximize speed and operational safety. So what this does is that this enables us to remain cost neutral, retain coverage in most of the areas, but provide higher frequency service to the city. Next slide, please. And what this chart shows you is access to, quote, frequent service. And so what you see now is that we really don't have frequent service anywhere, and that's in the existing. And in the proposed line, we are able to provide, what it shows is that we're able to provide more frequent service to many people. Next slide. There are some trade-offs. Of course there are, because we can't have everything when we're trying to, of course, be budget neutral and increase frequencies. There are a couple of areas that we are going to have to reduce service. So for instance, one of the areas where we're taking away service is on Nutley Street, and this is outside the city. However, that area is served by Metrobus. On Judicial Drive, which is where the number 2 is, that's an area that we currently have service and would not under our new plan, but that is served by Fairfax Connector. Where there is a loss of service is on 123, a direct connection between our Old Town and our North Fax area. We can still get there using that west route, but what we're losing is a direct connection up 123. So in the grand scheme of things, we looked at these and we thought these were acceptable trade-offs to us to be able to have this frequent service on Q, this more frequent service. Next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned, we're going to be able to have more frequent service to the key hotspots. 96% of the existing Q boardings are going to be within a quarter mile of a new Q stop or an existing regional bus route. So we're really happy about that. That to us is a win. And again, as I also mentioned, most areas of service loss will be covered by Metrobus or Connector. Next slide. So our next steps is that we are just going to be testing these just to really make sure we can hit those 20 and 30 minutes. We will be using some DRPT funding from next year to plan our implementation strategy, and then in FY28 implement those new routes. So exciting things coming for Q. It'll be even Q-cher. Thanks so much. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Wendy. I love Q and Q-ter. So now we are going to move on, and I'm going to ask our panelists some questions. This is another reminder that you are welcome to add questions to the Q&A box chat thing, and we will definitely mix those in as we have about 18 minutes left. So I just want to make sure that if you have any questions, now's your time to ask them, and then I will channel them to our presenters. But let's start with some of my questions. So I want to ask each of our panelists what the biggest challenge was during each of your processes for these different programs, and how did you overcome it? So Silas's camera's on first, so I'm going to ask Silas, and then Wendy, and then Gladys.
I got singled out. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, good question, Sophie. I think among our many challenges, our biggest one really was streamlining information sharing. So really prior to the establishment of the bus stop program, there's kind of a hodgepodge, like capital improvements and maintenance at bus stops was kind of managed by separate teams and based on the project. I mean, it could be as simple as, we were planning an improvement to a bus stop, adding seating, but our public works department had already gotten a request from a resident and installed seating. So kind of that kind of stuff. So going back to what I talked about with that bus stop audit, I worked hand in hand with Dash, my colleague from Dash, Eric Voigt, to personally self-audit every single bus stop in the city. And once we got that baseline of information into that centralized inventory, we were able to establish, okay, here's what we do next. Here's our source of truth. All staff, this is where you look to. And then we kind of established that pecking order of how we program out the improvements too.
Thanks, Silas. Wendy?
For us, and it's something I mentioned when I was just presenting a minute ago, but for us, one of the big questions was, is it important for us to maintain access to Q, which is a zero fare system, or any transit? And what's the priority? If someone has access to any transit, is that good enough? And so that was a really big question for us to grapple with. And what we came to is that there are some locations where it is going to make sense because it will save time on the routes. And as long as those people that live along those routes have access to some transit, we felt that that was acceptable.
Absolutely, yeah. Gladys?
Honestly, our biggest challenge was figuring out how to get existing fixed route routers in Leesburg to actually try the on-demand service. So these were people who've been riding the routes for years. Rather than guess what was holding them back, we actually went directly to the riders with a survey. And a couple of things jumped out. First, there were people who actually didn't understand how on-demand connected to the routes they already knew. So we're addressing that head on by adding route connection information right inside the app so riders can see exactly how on-demand links up with their fixed route. And then the second thing the survey revealed was that our service area wasn't reaching some destinations these riders actually needed. So we took that feedback seriously. In July, we're actually expanding the Leesburg zone to cover those key connections and locations. So, I mean, what I take away from all that is that the riders themselves told us what to fix, and we just really had to ask. And it's really shaping how we think of the rest of the pilot moving forward.
Absolutely. It's interesting mentioning that I think microtransit is so, it's not, people don't understand it immediately as they do what a bus is. And so trying to educate on that and understand and teaching people that it's a connection point, that is hard. And I'm not positive, but I'm sure that other microtransit programs are probably having those same challenges. We talked a little bit about about engaging with the public and writers. I feel like you all have touched on that. So is there anything else you feel like was valuable from or an interesting way or anything about engaging with the public and making sure that they were heard in your process? Wendy?
I'll just mention one thing that we did that we had never done before, was we had large QR codes printed up, and we put them on every seat on every bus that directed people to the website. And we had the information in multiple languages about what the proposed changes were that we were looking at and trying to get feedback for. So we felt like this was the most effective way. You walked onto the bus, you could not miss it because it was on every seat, a QR code to go and just see what was proposed. And we got a lot of feedback that way. So I thought that was a really great new way that we approached.
I love that. That almost feels like guerrilla marketing. Get it right in their face. Silas or Gladys, Gladys, you just talked about it with their survey. But Silas, is there any public engagement aspects that you want to touch on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for like a corridor rebalancing effort, we would do our standard kind of public engagement process and to get to a board and public hearing for approval. But in terms of like amenity specific work, we really leveraged Alex 311, which is our city's customer service portal. Folks have been using it for years for a multitude of different things to, complaints about conditions and this and that. We actually worked with Alex 311 staff to kind of better incorporate to where now folks can ask us questions directly about bus stops and also request improvements directly through there. So we kind of use that to leverage a little more and be a little more receptive to intentionally where folks want to have something done. Like if we get a request 3 different times over a few months for a bench at a certain location, there's definitely demand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. We are talking about transit, so we always have to talk about the funding that goes with transit. And I know that Wendy mentioned that her bus network redesign was budget neutral, which is awesome and a big flex. And you had some commuter choice funding for your bus stops. But Gladys and Silas, if you guys want to talk about how you funded your projects, what sources,
Sure.
and maybe any anxieties about continued funding.
Yeah, so for our pilot, we were awarded the DRPT demonstration grant, which we came in with a 20% local match on our side. So that combination is really what made it possible to try something like this without it being a huge financial risk to the locality. On the funding concern piece, honestly, I wouldn't call it worry, but I think I would think that anyone working in transportation right now knows that jurisdictions at every level are keeping a close eye on what's available and what's not. that's just where we are fiscally across the board. We're not unique in that. Regarding the specific question about the grant, the specific one, the DRPT demonstration grant, I would say that would probably be a DRPT answer for them. Maybe they would give us some really great insight and have a clearer picture on that than we do in terms of long-term sustainability. But what I will say is that what we've built or what we are building with this pilot, the data, the rider feedback, the outcomes, that's all part of making the case for why this kind of investment matters. So we're very much thinking about that even now.
Absolutely. And Silas?
I'll just piggyback off of the DRPT aspect. The TRIP grant has been instrumental for the city in a lot of the work we've done, from seating to shelters to ADA work. We also do have grants from the federal level. We have some CMAQ RSTP for capital bus shelter work that we're going to do. It's actually going to construction soon. I wouldn't say it's a worry, but I mean, it's always an open question about future availability of funds. We are definitely grateful for the grant opportunities that we've had and are available to us. But I will say sometimes is when you're programming improvements, sometimes it's a little easier to program capital improvements versus, say, items that require operating, like real-time screens, for example.
That's always the case, isn't it? Those operating versus capital. And just for our audience, just a little bit of context, in case you are not a Northern Virginia transportation nerd like all of us. DRPT is the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation. So they're our state agency that helps, fund transit. But we talked about challenges, but I think that it's important also to think about lessons learned, especially in the context. NVTC, we're a regional organization. We like to think regionally and help out our jurisdictions. So thinking about how you could provide any advice for other jurisdictions interested in any of the things that you guys are up to. How could your lessons learned and the challenges you faced and how you overcame them, how can you help others in the region? I'm going to let whoever wants to speak to that one first go.
I'll kick us off. I think my main piece of advice would be twofold. One, start from the same baseline, and two, take care of the low-hanging fruit. Starting from the same baseline, just ensure that your entire team has access to the same information. There's a structure in place to hold people accountable, and then ensure that work is accomplished in a timely manner. Basically, avoid duplication. Also, take care of the low-hanging fruit before tackling more difficult projects. Costs can easily balloon. We all know that with our projects. And when costs balloon, residents are delayed from seeing results. So in my experience, hit the ground running with some of the low-hanging fruit things first, get the positive feedback from the community, and then use that to build and leverage for more expansive projects.
Yeah, and I can add on to that too. First thing I'd say is to do your homework up front. That's really important. And a big part of that is really getting that leadership buy-in early, not like halfway through, not when you've already started the project. Because we all know if you don't get that support from the top going in, it makes it kind of harder down the road. Second, and this may be specific to Virginia, there are some really good funding resources available to help offset a lot of these costs, especially for a pilot like what we're currently in. So don't let the expense be the reason why you don't try it. The DRPT demonstration grant is a great example of that. The other thing I'd strongly recommend is investing in a feasibility study before you launch. That's not a stopgap at all. Make sure you get that done. It helps you go in with realistic expectations regarding your service area, your ridership, all of that sort of stuff, which is really important, especially when you're going into an investment like this. And as far as lessons learned, honestly, we're still learning. That's why we have a pilot, right? So we don't have all the answers yet, and I think that's okay. And I would just like to also say that if anybody out there is thinking about doing something like this, feel free to reach out. Happy to hear what you're considering and happy to also share more. Back to you, Sophie.
Wendy?
I don't have too much to add. I agree with what Gladys and Silas have said. I will just say that I do think that sometimes you don't always have to go big. Sometimes small changes can be very meaningful. And everything just takes so much time, so much money. And so sometimes that low-hanging fruit really is the easiest and best things to do. So that's it.
I do love that. Yeah. Gladys, there is a quick question from the audience about what software are you using that helps provide connectivity between micro and fixed route service? So I just want to toss that one in quickly.
Yeah, we're currently with RideCo.
Okay, perfect. Quick, nice, easy answer. Oh, and Justin has a great question. How long has it taken each project to get from this is something we want to do to initial rollout and launch? And were there any surprising curveballs or delays? Uh, is anyone inspired to go first? I love this question.
I'm happy to answer it. I mean, this has been we have done our route changes as part of our TDP update. It's taken us a couple of years, and we're going to be using also all of FY27 to just plan the rollout of the changes. So at the end of the day, it's probably going to be 4 years from beginning to end.
I could also add, for us, it was really fast moving. So we launched the pilot service in July of 2025. Before that, we completed the feasibility study, got board adoption, et cetera, less than a year. So it was really quick moving.
I'll just add that for the city, it really depends on the project itself, and on the amenity. For heavier construction, like a bus shelter, definitely requires a lot more planning and facilitating. But for things such as, seating or lighting, it just comes down to analyzing site conditions, requests, and then overall right of way.
And Silas, you did a full survey of every bus stop. How long did that take?
Good 3 months. Good 3 months of a lot of long days and a lot of walking. But to have that clear baseline of information definitely made it a lot easier to program improvements and to get a lot of work done quick.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely invaluable. Definitely takes some manpower.
Well, let's just we know
or
all the
just one
transit
Silas. I am going to ask you all one last question, and that is what is next? Are there any new or upcoming projects at your agency or jurisdiction and to share that continue to, improve the bus rider experience? Gladys.
Sure, happy to share. I had touched on this a little bit during the presentation, but the big thing for us right now is we're launching the second on-demand pilot in Sterling on July 1st. It's exciting. We're not starting from scratch. We have a lot of the bones there, right? Everything in place from what we've learned from the current pilot, the rider feedback, the app updates, the service area adjustments, all of that's going into how we're setting the next one up. But honestly, I'll say the same thing. Like I said before, we're going to keep learning. That's just the nature of it. Every pilot teaches you something you didn't expect. And I think that's really makes it exciting and worth doing.
I love that. Wendy?
This is our big thing at Q, is getting this launched. So that's probably our biggest thing. And we're hoping to put some more semi seats and get some more bus stop amenities as well. But right now our big thing is the network redesign.
And it's a pretty big thing. Yeah. So I understand it. All right, Silas.
So I think we definitely have a lot more on the way. Our transit program as a whole has some efforts coming down the pipeline pertaining to our transit ways, advancing with the Western Transitway and Duke Street Transitway, along with several transit centers in the books and coming along. I think on the individual bus stop level, we're excited to start deploying modular bus platforms within the next year. Get those at priority locations. And then also, as I previously mentioned, we have a capital project going to construction soon for 14 bus shelters that we're excited about.
Amazing. And with that, I am going to wrap things up. That is all we have. That's all the time we have. And so I just want to give a huge thank you to Sarah Bagley, our presenters, and all of you in the audience for attending today. Please take the survey. There's this QR code on the screen, and I will share in the chat the link as well. If I can figure out how to do that, maybe I can't. Someone else will share that. But take the survey, and all the materials and a recording of the webinar will be posted next week. So if you want to send it along to someone else or revisit anything that you just loved about today, you will be able to do that next week. But thanks again, everyone, for attending, and have a great weekend.